Now to our other big story tonight, and that was the governor's final State of the State address.
He wrapped up with a report card of his time in office, handing out a passing grade.
During this period, we've had huge ups and downs. It hasn't been a straight line. But overall, there's no question that Michigan is a far better state today than 2010.
Much of the governor's address tonight was upbeat, celebrating Michigan's accomplishments over the past 7 years, including hundreds of thousands of new jobs.
And again, we do have team coverage at the state capitol, getting reaction from your lawmakers and going one-on-one with Governor Snyder on his big night.
First, though, a look at some of the governor's big goals for his final year in office: investing in Michigan workers, education, and dealing with the PFAS contamination here in West Michigan.
The number one priority, I believe, is talent. We can do more to get people career connected to wonderful careers, and we can do it faster and better than we historically have because of changes in how the world's going to operate. Now we have more money to invest in school operations. So in light of that, when I do the budget coming up in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going to be proposing the largest increase in the basic per pupil student foundation allowance in the last 15 years. Let's invest more in education and the operations of our schools. PFAS is a series of chemical compounds, but we need to do something now to step up and understand it has negative impacts on our health. So in Michigan, we're taking leadership on that. We're partnering with the federal government, with local authorities to hold those accountable that help create the contamination. We're establishing standards in our state. We're leading the nation on that.
The governor also touched on the sexual assault controversy on the campus of Michigan State University.
In fact, he highlighted Larry Nassar's case and the dozens of assault survivors who've told their stories in court during the past week.
Since 2015, we've made $1.6 million on grant fundings to college campuses. And what are these grants doing? They're helping educate men and women on how to prevent assaults, how to provide support when it does happen, and how to help survivors with the healing process. We need to keep that up. But I'd also add a special note tonight. Let us also apply a similar commitment in the Nassar case and reach out and support the courageous survivors, ensure that cases like this never happen again.
Now we want to go live to the Capitol. Evan Dean kicks off our team coverage with reaction from your lawmakers. Evan?
Brian and Marley, good evening. No surprises in the media room tonight. Republicans upbeat, just as the governor was, more than happy to list off all the accomplishments of the past 7 years, and the Democrats questioning just how much has really been accomplished. You could call it a symbolic victory lap. The governor kicking off tonight's speech by comparing 2 Wall Street Journal articles on Michigan. The first from '09, before he took office, titled "The State of Joblessness." The second from just months ago, praising Michigan's comeback.
When you compare where the state was 8 years ago to where it is today, it's night and day.
West Michigan Republicans with smiles ear to ear when talking jobs. 540,000 in the private sector created since late 2010. The governor also pressing the need for talented workers to fill more jobs. Jobs that House Republicans say are there for the taking.
Doesn't matter which industry. If you need a job, you want to improve the job that you have, we have jobs available for you at a higher pay.
Democrats, on the other hand, view Snyder's tenure much differently, saying the touted per capita income growth has not spread everywhere.
What the governor is describing, what happened in Michigan right now, I'm not quite saying the same thing in Muskegon.
House reps from both parties were happy to hear Snyder touch on PFAS contamination, with the GOP applauding the state's response. But Democrats, they're left wanting more.
He talked about being a leader in that area as a state, and we are very clearly not being a leader. We know that 70 parts per trillion is not a strong enough standard. There are other states who are leading the way in this, and they're doing a better job.
So that is the spin from your local lawmakers. Political reporter Rick Albin here now. And Rick, you were actually able to go one-on-one with the governor ahead of his final address.
Yes, Evan, it's come almost a tradition for us to do that. We go right up in the second floor into his private office just before he goes out to do the State of the State. But this was different. And tonight I wanted to know what it felt like knowing this would be the last time he'd go into a joint session talking about the Michigan condition. What's going through your mind now after all of these years, 7 years of being in this office?
Yeah, well, one, I'm proud of what we've accomplished. And when I say we as a state, we've made a tremendous comeback, and that's exciting. At the same time, as you said, Time's running short.
Going into his final year in office, Governor Snyder knows there's not much time to get the rest of his agenda passed. But that won't stop him from trying.
And the way I look at it, though, is I want to run through the tape at the end of this year. So there's still a lot to do. And you'll hear tonight some exciting initiatives that I really want to push. There's more to be done.
And it's not just the governor that's leaving Lansing. 2/3 of the senators, perhaps as many as 1/3 of the members of the House, will all be going too. He hopes that they have some unfinished priorities that might match up with his, and something could happen at the state capitol this year.
There's a real opportunity to say these are important things that aren't things that would make a difference in 2018, but things could be passed and put into law that could make a difference in 2020, 2022, and beyond. And that's one of the messages I've tried to get across to everyone. This isn't just about what you do while you're in your term. How do we set a long-term foundation for success? It's not about us, but we can help the next generation and the generation after to be even better.
And Rick Albin back with us live now. The governor, Rick, optimistic tonight as always, but will the legislature, are they willing to work with him during this election year?
Well, that may be the $56 billion question. That's about the size of the budget, and that's the first thing they're going to have to work on. But, Brian, as you know, this is an election year, so if there is an opportunity, and I think there might be some common ground they could find, you're going to have to find it fast, because by June, when that budget is done, a whole lot of lawmakers are going to be out of Lansing, and they're going to be campaigning. The other problem is lawmakers here, even Republicans, are not in the compromise mood. Remember, it was just last week that they did the first ever override of a veto by Governor Snyder, the first in 7 years. So there are a lot of unanswered questions, but if anything happens, it has to happen quickly, because the second half of this year will be all about campaigning, Brian.
Rick Albin live from the state capitol tonight. Thank you, Rick.
And tonight, the governor also highlighted a program we've told you about here in West Michigan, the Vocational Village, which helps train inmates for jobs as they leave prison.
One graduate is Salvador Gutierrez. He was in prison for drug crimes. He enrolled in the Vocational Village in Ionia and completed all 4 tiers of a computerized machining course. He earned 4 nationally recognized certificates. When he finished the program, he just didn't stop. He became a tutor and mentor for new students. He's out now. He's successfully employed at Transmatic in Holland and doing great. And Salvador is with us tonight. Salvador, please stand up and let us recognize you on your success.
Perhaps the most memorable moment of the night goes to Jeremiah Nelson, who brought his little car into the Capitol. Jeremiah has spina bifida, which means he's unable to crawl or walk. A robotics team in his town up north built him a car, and he drove it right down the aisle during tonight's speech. Our coverage of this important night continues on woodtv.com. You can read more about the governor's proposals and watch the entire address, as well as a news conference state Democrats held tonight.